Hello, good afternoon. My name is Tom Fortismere. I'm the founder of the FreeMind Project charity, which is an organization dedicated to creating social change, which makes it easier for us to be happier and healthier and to live in a sustainable world. Our main area of focus is understanding the interconnection of things. And that's why it's such a wonderful opportunity to speak at an event which is about ethical investing and giving people an opportunity to support incredible community projects across the world that are driving positive change. But I'm passionate at understanding that it's not just ethical investing is not just about investing in these amazing projects. It's about investing in them ethically. It's about understanding the impact our investment can have. The responsibility we have, yes, to our shareholders to get a return on their investment, but the responsibility we have to these communities to empower them appropriately so that they're building beautiful organizations that are really doing good in the world and that we're not polluting them with the westernized idea of how to do business. And at the same time, I don't subscribe wholly to this idea that we take indigenous wisdom and apply that to our modern world. There's beauty in those wisdom traditions, and we can learn a huge amount about understanding interconnection and sustainability and environmental impact and looking after your tribe, even if your tribe is 50,000 employees spread across the globe. But it's understanding that actually those indigenous wisdom traditions don't transplant perfectly onto the West, and nor should they. And nor should our commercial values be completely transplanted into their working practices. So it's understanding that balance. It's understanding what really works. And it's supporting organizations, both the investment companies and the companies who through their corporate social responsibility want to do good and want to use their supply chain, supporting indigenous businesses, indigenous communities with their commerce, but also the indigenous communities themselves. How do we support them to grow beautifully? And so that's why I'm so excited to speak here. I want to share with you what I have learned about what makes things work. I've been working for 20 years in the area of happiness and human contentment. I had a practice on Harley Street. I'm a published author in the area around happiness and contentment. And my research has taught me, and my private practice as a kind of laboratory understanding individual happiness, forced me to create the FreeMind Project because I realized that individual happiness is not really a thing that we can strive for as a solo effort. Our individual happiness is directly connected to the happiness of those that are around us, not just in our family, not just in our immediate community, but across the world. And this goes beyond this concept of interconnection. And so Thich Nhat Hanh, the brilliant peace activist and Buddhist monk, created this concept, coined this concept of interbeing. And it's really built on the idea of the understanding of the kind of non-dualistic philosophies of oneness that go beyond the idea of interconnection. Interconnection holds in place that there is something distinct and separate, that they are connected, whereas interbeing is more about understanding that we are part of a singular field of consciousness. We are part of a singular field of energetic exchange. And if we are interested in ethical investing, and if we're interested in being involved in making positive change, it is vital that we understand these principles so that the work we do honors the beauty of that and bows down to the inherent logic of understanding why we must protect and preserve not just our people, not just our communities, but the planet itself. And how do we do that? How do we understand that? And so for me, what I found most fascinating about individual happiness is that it's the microcosm that can teach us everything about what's needed to change humanity as a whole. What's true for an individual is also true for society, in exactly the same way that angry activism can create more resistance. Because actually, if you look at what makes an individual change, if an individual comes into my private practice and wants to change, and let's say that they're behaving in awful ways, the worst thing I could do would be to point a finger in their face and walk around them protesting with placards that what they're doing is bad or wrong. They would close down. They would not respond. And so it's understanding how can we create social change by putting our arm around systems, by cajoling into more wise and aware ways of being. And it's how do we build companies, and how do we build organizations, and how do we get companies to see this connection between all things, to understand this state of interbeing that we find ourselves in. Now that's what I'm passionate about. That's what this talk is about today. And so in my work with people and organizations to help them become happier places to work, I've understood that there are really three pillars that we as individuals need to develop. And it's in understanding this that enables us to create businesses that are amazing places to work. And it is these principles that we should be using and these learnings that we should be using to ensure that these indigenous communities, that these indigenous entrepreneurs that we're investing in understand these principles, so that as they grow and as they expand and as they become more successful, they really are creating amazing places to work, which are incredible for their team, incredible for their community, amazing for the immediate environment. And of course, the beauty in this is understanding that for the organizations in the West with a corporate social responsibility, they have a supply chain that could support these businesses, these entrepreneurs, creating partnerships, and the investment houses or individuals investing understand also what a massive opportunity it is to create a culture in your business in the westernized world that gives your staff and your team an opportunity to feel fulfilled. Ethical investing and ethical partnerships is an incredible part of what can help your employee engagement and help your team fulfillment. It's like, yes, there are some companies who are, amazing to work for already. You work for Google or Twitter and they've got beanbags everywhere and table tennis tables and they're, doing amazing things. And people come to work feeling proud. But what if your work is stamping metal or processing data or any number of things that might not have that glory or have that glamour or have that immediate positive impact? But what if 10% of your profits go to supporting or partnering with indigenous businesses? What if you're offsetting your carbon with the indigenous communities who actually are responsible for 17% of regenerating the world's carbon? Then your employee who comes to work and his job is just punching holes in metal, but he knows he's working for an organization that cares. And it is this that enables us to create a positive, diverse, sustainable, productive, and beautiful world. It's where we see this interconnection. We understand this state of interbeing. So as business owners, we're passionate about creating spaces for our employees to come to work and love their work. One of the main inspirations for creating the FreeMind project was years ago. I believed that actually the best way to create social systemic change was to get emotional intelligence training into schools. And so I began. I thought, you know what, if we can just get emotional intelligence training into schools, then all the psychiatrists will be out of work, 2 or 3 generations down the line. And so I tried. And I met with quite a lot of resistance. And when I, tried to get these youngsters to get excited about engaging in the world in meaningful and positive ways, they some of their first responses were they just wanted to be rich, or they just wanted to be pop stars. They wanted to be famous. And I could have dismissed them as being shallow. I could have, just given up at that point. But when I drilled a little bit deeper with them, the problem was that they saw their parents coming home from work, and their parents looked brutalized, despondent, dejected, no sense of being creatively involved in something beautiful. They were tired, they were overworked. And so I began to see this connection, that as parents we have a responsibility to come home from work with a massive smile on our face. And so I got involved with a European socially funded project to look at what makes amazing places to work. And this is where I really started to understand that ethical commerce, ethical business is the bottleneck for our evolution as a race. This is how we engage our young to care. This is how we inspire them to be their very best. We want to create companies where the children of the staff hope one day to be lucky enough to work for that company. Imagine the beauty of that, where they're so inspired by how their parents come home, and they're so inspired by the look on their face that they just want to be involved. They want to work for that company. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to build companies like that? Well, they have to be amazing. They have to deeply and sincerely and profoundly care about their employees, which is the best way to build a company culture which is sustainable, creative, can respond to challenge, cohesive. It's like the evidence is there. The companies who are the best ones to work for are incredibly resilient in the face of adversity. And invariably, those companies, they don't just look after their people because they're interested in their welfare. They do it because they know there's a direct correlation between, if you look after your people, they will look after your customers. The connection between customer service and employee welfare is well proven now. But then we expand it further to, how is this company making the community better? Those companies that let their staff go for a few days and work for local charities. And those companies that not just donate a certain percentage of their profits to charity, but it's those companies that then find out that £10,000 or that £100,000 went to Malawi and it helped this kid get this computer, and as a result of that has now qualified as a doctor and has now created a health practice in his local village where he's now doing amazing work. And they're seeing the names of the children and the smiles on the faces of the children and the lives that have been saved. It is when we create a direct connection in our awareness between the good that we do and the positive impact that we have. And so companies and investors have an opportunity to invest in beautiful projects, charitable projects, and also to partner and to invest in indigenous communities that understand that interconnection, already want to build businesses that are sustainable and beautiful and powerful for creating positive impact at no expense to our environment, at no expense to the local community. And so it's understanding how we can get involved and how we can create these partnerships and how we can support these investment drives to ensure that these organizations, these entrepreneurs that we're investing in, understand how to build a business and how to expand their business and how to have actual global success without it becoming another version of a model of mechanical material destruction that we've seen far too much of in the world. And so the FreeMind Project, we're passionate about helping people understand what is it that individuals require to come to work, to feel inspired, to feel engaged, to feel passionate about what they do, to bring their very best to work, and helping companies focus on creating environments where they foster that sense of excellence and where everyone is working towards, yes, good shareholder value returns, good stakeholder value returns, and also understanding this state of interbeing, understanding that the happiness of our people and the happiness of our world and the happiness of our planet is directly related to our profitability. This is not about some greenwash, do some good with your profits. This is understanding the deeper connection between our team's happiness and the happiness of the land and the health of the nation and our productivity. And it's understanding we bring this level of rigor to our supply chain. It's like, how happy are the people that work at the organizations that you patronize with your supply chain? What are we doing to understand, and how are we engaging our employees by helping them get involved in the projects? And how are we bringing our best to life, and how are we ensuring that when we are supporting projects, we're doing it in such a way that we're bringing out the best in those projects without polluting them with a paradigm that could cause more trouble. So why is this more important than ever now? Well, because of the global pandemic and the inevitable economic disruption that's following it. And because of the changes in the world that we've seen because of the way in which commerce has been slowed. The fact that the canals in Venice are running clear. The fact that the Himalayas are visible from many, many miles away in ways that they haven't been for years. Because of this disruption in the pollution that's been occurring. And the way in which our world has been doing business. The whole thing is being rightfully brought into question. This is our time to really reflect on the values we're operating with and the ideas that we're using to run our systems. Just like individuals, when individuals hit rock bottom, people often consider that to be a really, really bad time. And it's a very challenging time, but it's ripe with opportunity. This is a time when an individual reflects on who they have been and how they have been and asks themselves, who do I want to be? Because how I've been hasn't been working. It's failed. And so what if on a global level we asked ourselves the same questions now? We get brought to our knees and we stop to consider, what are we doing and how are we doing it and how can we do things differently? And so I want to share with you what I believe to be the 3 pillars of individual happiness, of creating a workplace that generates productivity and happiness and health, and how we can apply those principles and nurture indigenous community projects in ways that are beautiful, in the ways that I've been talking about. And so the 3 pillars upon which I believe all happiness and true lasting success are built, and our research over the 20 years has confirmed this, are about ensuring we have peace, we're connected to our power, and we have a deeper sense of purpose. This is true as individuals, as organizations, as communities. And so the first thing that the COVID pandemic has brought to our attention is the incredible amount of emotional pressure people are under, that we're already under. And as always, you know, in people's individual times of breakdown, there's usually a stressor event. Now, the stressor event is not the cause of the breakdown. It is a catalyst in the breakdown process because the system was already overloaded. And what we're seeing now with a massive increase in suicide, a massive increase in mental health issues, is we're actually exposing for the first time how our world has been operating with principles and values and mechanisms that were not emotionally intelligent. And so in those 3 pillars, first, peace, we believe that emotional intelligence is one of the essential pillars of a modern future that is sustainable and beautiful and profitable and healthy and safe for all. Pillar 2 is power, and understanding that we need to be connected with our agency, our ability to make things happen. But to do that well, we have to understand success psychology. We have to understand the mechanisms of thought and the way the human mind works and the way humans work as a collective to drive change safely. And the third, about purpose, is having a deeper context of meaning for our life as individuals, as an organization, as a community, and as a world. And the best source of connection to that is oneness philosophy. So we have emotional intelligence, success psychology, and oneness philosophy. And that's what the FreeMind project ostensibly is about. It's about promoting and training and developing products and services and consultations so that communities and organizations can make sure that all projects, all plans, all cultures, All workplaces are built on these three principles. How can we be more emotionally intelligent? How can we be using a more successful psychology? And how can we be understanding the interconnection of all things so that we can be successful and happy and sustainable? And so right now, companies are aware that their people are struggling. Their mental health is severely impaired. And so we're passionate about giving companies, organizations, communities, projects, entrepreneurs, anybody that needs it, the tools to be able to manage your emotional state. And if we're holding on to trauma, if we're holding on to dysfunction, if we're holding on to negative behavioral patterns or negative limiting beliefs, then we often pollute our projects, we pollute our plans, we sabotage, we force, we coerce, all of the kind of energies and attitudes that bend things out of shape, that make things destructive instead of collaborative, that make things toxic instead of organic, is the kind of thinking that's driven from actually our internal traumas and the trauma stories that we purport and perpetuate as communities or organizations. And so the clearest way to start breaking those patterns of neglect and abuse and trauma and bad practices with the land and pollution and environmentalism is all about the peace that we bring to our internal process and to the mechanisms of understanding within our organizations and communities. And that's emotional intelligence. How can we understand our emotions? How can we change how we feel? How can we understand our feelings? How can we help our people understand their feelings so that we're not operating from fear, we're not operating from scarcity, we're not overly competitive, we're not overly proprietorial, we're not overly territorial. These are the marker points of an old paradigm that have caused most of the trouble in the world. How can we be truly cooperative? How can we be truly collaborative? How can we be in it together in such a way that works? And the only thing that makes that possible is being able to understand how fear co-opts our response to things and our response to each other and our abilities to truly collaborate and be in community together across the globe. And so helping people transcend those fears, dissolve their limiting thinking and get over those feelings of inadequacy that drive imposter syndrome, that drive a feeling of fraudulence internally, externally, that create pretense and all of the BS that so often operates in businesses where people are not authentic, they're not accountable. And through all those gaps and through all those flaws, all sorts of beautiful projects fail and flounder for no good reason. And so emotional intelligence is the most important part of laying a foundation of success that will go on to create happiness and health for all involved. And so the second pillar, power, is about success psychology. This is about understanding the way in which the mind works, understanding how our language patterns and our belief systems and our ideas about reality have a massive impact on how we operate and how we engage people and how we can lead people and how to bring out the best performance from ourselves and the best performance for others. Now, all these things ideally would be taught at schools, but it's too late. So the best place for this stuff to be delivered is now within companies, with retraining, making companies more emotionally intelligent, making them more aware of success psychology, helping people understand that the language that they use, the belief systems they're operating with are limiting or liberating, and how they can be changed. And what do you believe about your projects? What do you believe about your investments? What do you believe is possible? What do you believe is probable? Because our belief systems act as a filter that have a massive impact on our performance. So helping people understand that, helping people understand how those things can be changed is vital if we want our projects to be a success. It's vital if we want our companies to be successful. So we're interested in training people in the very best success psychology so they understand how to change how they think, feel, and therefore behave. And this is not just about the internal mechanisms of power and excellence. This is hugely about taking action, ethical action, accountable action, realistic actions, building accountability structures, buddy, peer-to-peer systems, all of the mechanisms that enable us to create communities and organizations that are not dictated to from a hierarchy of control, but actually co-created from a community devoted and committed to excellence. And so in this realm, what we've seen to be the most effective way to creating organizations, communities where they thrive, and where they thrive on pressure. This is not about just giving everybody loads of breaks and bringing in lots of donuts to work and lots of, bean bags. This is not all about being Google. This is about working really hard and being able to be incredibly productive. This is not about taking the pressure off. This is about giving people a different perspective on pressure so that it doesn't create stress. It's not about stress management, it's about stress prevention. And stress prevention comes from actually a shift in our perception more than anything else. Some people can be in an environment and can be completely stressed out, whereas another person can be in that environment, they're not stressed out at all. Both performing, well, the one that's less stressed is probably performing more effectively. So what is that? Is it the environment, or is it the perception? Is it the philosophy? Is it the attitude? Is it the approach? And these things can be taught, these things can be learned, these things can be studied and codified. What makes someone effective in that role? And how is that transferable? How is that how can we codify that and distill that and then turn that into training? So we're passionate about being able to upskill people with certain areas and certain skill sets to take the very best performers in a department and then codify those skills and then translate that, distill that, and then get everybody else up to speed. And organizations should have that kind of active learning protocols. And we're passionate about sharing with people what can be done to make that possible. But for me, I want to share with you what I believe to be the most effective way of thinking about excellence at work in our projects or our communities, organizations. It's a concept we call the character gym. And so typically a training that you might get in a company would be called Go the Extra Mile. And this is where trainers will come in and try and convince your staff to put in more effort, to be better, to work harder. And people are often talking about value alignment. You want to get your employees aligned with the company values. The truth is, the employees might be remotely interested, slightly interested in the company values. They want the company to be values-led, but that doesn't mean if you put up a poster in the toilet which has got inspiration and integrity and excellence in that, that they're going to care. People care about their values. So we created this concept called reversed value alignment, where you think about, well, if you're asking your employees to go the extra mile, what you're really asking is for them to be more generous. You're asking for them to give more of themselves. And there's beauty in that. That's the human value of generosity. Now, does that have implications for that employee's life at home? Does that have implications for their life as a father or as a daughter or as a community member or with their own body? Of course it does. And they're going to be more interested in that. So what we found is the greatest way to drive excellence in any project or in any organization is to get people to think of work as a place where they get to develop their own character, to develop their own values, where you come to work to develop your capacity to be generous, not because it's going to improve the stock value, the share value for the shareholders, but because it's going to improve your life. Because if you can practice being more generous at work by giving more of yourself there, how will that enable you to give more to your family or give more in your life? And how would that benefit you? How can we get people excited about their projects in such a way that it's a gymnasium for our character? We don't go to the gym and pick up a bar with no weights on it. It's not meant to be easy. We're not asking, how can we make this easy on everybody? It's how can we think about difficult in a beautiful way that makes it empowering and inspiring? So it's about helping projects and organizations and entrepreneurs and corporates that want to create amazing cultures to get their people to think of this as an opportunity to develop themselves personally, to make them more emotionally intelligent, to make them more successful, and to develop those skill sets. And the third pillar is about purpose. This is about coming to work knowing that you are either directly doing good for the world because you're working for a company that does something beautiful. And so many of these projects and these incredible indigenous entrepreneurs are doing projects that are amazing. But this is also about anybody that comes to work in any organization. It's like how maybe the organization is a charity, or it does brilliant things, or it's got this great innovative product that does good in a community. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it just bends metal or changes the shape of plastic. But what if it has a purpose where 5 or 10 or 15 or 20% of its profits is dedicated to beautiful projects? It gives people that opportunity to come to work and be inspired by what they do. And it's when we understand the interconnected nature of reality that businesses want to have that kind of relationship with its people and with its immediate community in the world at large. And when we as employees can come to work and know that we're working for an organization that understands it's not even about caring or doing good, it's about having enough wisdom to see the interconnection and know that the only logical thing to do is to protect the heartlands and to protect the indigenous communities of the world and to invest in partnerships and to offset our carbon with those communities that hold 17% of all of the carbon sinks in the world. It's seeing that, knowing we work for a company whose products and services might be mundane and pedestrian, but their heart has an eye on the overview, has an eye on the interbeing, has an understanding of the oneness and the interconnection of all. And when we can build communities and projects and businesses, whether in the indigenous communities or whether in the Western world, and we can create partnerships and connection, and investors can see the incredible opportunity in building beautiful businesses and beautiful paradigms that will inspire us and show us the way to create business, stepping beyond the old mechanical material paradigm, which is by definition time limited and based on a relationship to resources, human resources and natural resources, which is not sustainable. Now is the time for us to stand again, to step up from our knees, to think beautifully about what projects do we want to support. How are we going to support them? How can we bring in these incredible tools to create beautiful communities that are protected and preserved? And how can we build a beautiful world together? And how can we communicate that? And why is this important now? Is because consumers of tomorrow, pretty much of today, a significant portion of people are asking themselves questions about where are they voting with their money. And this is the greatest opportunity we have for globalized commerce. When we become more conscious and people are becoming more conscious, they're asking themselves these important questions. The consumers of tomorrow will only want to invest in companies that are 360 degrees awesome. They look after their people, they look after their community, they look after the environment, and they look after our global community. They want to know that by buying that bar of soap or by buying that coffee bean or by buying into that company, that they are supporting an ethos that does no damage in the world and only does good. And so whether you just care about profitability, you should jump on this bandwagon and become aware of the extraordinary importance and massive opportunity of ethical commerce, ethical investing and investing ethically. And understanding they are not always the same thing. And so I'm excited, and we are excited at the FreeMind project to support any project that is doing its best to do good in the world with consulting and products and services. And so please do get in touch. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up in the Q&A, and I'm very excited to have had this opportunity to share with you what I believe to be the key principles and the key things to bear in mind when we're trying to make this world a more beautiful place. Thank you.